"You're not walking through that door with that baby." My father's voice thundered across the front porch, loud enough for the neighbors to peek through their blinds. I was barely 19, my arms trembling as I held my newborn son tight against my chest, his tiny face scrunched up in sleep. "Dad, please," I whispered, tears burning the edges of my eyes. "I have nowhere else to go. Just let me." "Don't call me Dad," he snapped, his fingers stabbing the air like a blade. "You lost the right to that when you came home pregnant without a ring. You embarrassed this family. You think I worked 30 years, built this house just to see you show up like some irresponsible girl with a mistake?" Behind him, my mother stood frozen in the hallway. Not a word, not a glance of warmth, just that cold, hollow stare she always gave me when I needed her most. "I gave birth 3 days ago," I said, my voice cracking as my legs shook. "I was bleeding alone in a hospital. Nobody came. Nobody answered." "We told you what would happen," he barked. "Now deal with it. Don't come crawling back. You ruined our name. Get out, and don't ever come back." And just like that, the door slammed shut. Before we begin, drop a comment and tell us, where are you from and from which city you're watching our videos? And after watching the whole video, don't forget to tell us, what would you do in this situation? Be honest. Tell me in the comments below. We read every comment. Let's begin. I stood there for a full minute, maybe more. My feet numb on the concrete steps, my arms aching from holding the baby. It had rained earlier. I could smell the damp pavement, and the chill crept through the holes in my worn-out shoes. I had $14 in my backpack, a cracked phone with no service, and one baby bottle left. But I still remember what I whispered to myself that night as I walked away. One day, they'll come knocking, and when they do, they'll choke on the silence they gave me. 15 years later, the sky was gold that evening, thick orange clouds painted across the sunset like fire smearing the horizon. Our house sat at the edge of Ridgeview Hills, nestled in a quiet cul-de-sac where even the wind felt softer. I was standing in my kitchen, barefoot, sipping tea. My son, Noah, was sitting on the back patio with a girl he'd been talking about for months. He was tall now, smarter than most kids I'd met. Handsome, too, in that quiet, confident way. He didn't talk much unless he meant it. His presence filled a room without trying, and he was everything they said I'd never raise. Then came the knock on the door. I didn't flinch. I set the tea down, walked slowly to the front entrance, and opened it. There they stood. My father, my mother, and right behind them, Aunt Lacey, her husband, and Cousin Matt. The same one who used to mock me at every family gathering like I was, some dirt beneath their shoes. They were soaked, faces pale. Dad looked thinner than I remembered, his once sturdy shoulders slumped. Mom's face was drawn, lips cracked. They all looked like they hadn't slept in weeks. "Rebecca?" My mother's voice trembled, and I saw the hint of shame in her eyes for the first time in my life. We need help." I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. "Really?" I said, my voice calm, steady, not like before. "What happened? The Great Morgan family finally hit a rough patch?" Dad cleared his throat, avoiding my gaze. "Your uncle pulled the business funding. Lacey's house was foreclosed. Matt got arrested. It's a long story. We've been staying in motels. We just need somewhere to land. Just for a few nights." For a second, I let the silence stretch, watched them squirm. Then, without a word, I stepped aside and opened the door wider. They exhaled, eyes filling with relief. But they froze mid-step when he appeared beside me. Noah, all grown up, broad-shouldered, well-dressed, standing tall in a pressed black suit, the logo on his jacket unmistakable. My father's eyes locked on it instantly. "Ridgetech?" he muttered, blinking. Noah gave a quiet smile and extended his hand toward him. "Hi, I'm Noah Brooks," he said, "CEO, and Rebecca's son." My father's knees actually buckled. His mouth opened, then closed again like he'd forgotten how to speak. My mother clutched the wall, her expression drained of color. I watched them all, expressionless, and then I said calmly, "You remember that baby you said ruined your reputation?" Pause. "He built an empire, while you let yours rot." I didn't let them in. Not yet. I watched their faces crumble as the door clicked shut between us. Not slammed, just closed. Soft and deliberate. A message. Noah stood beside me in the foyer, watching me quietly, waiting for me to say something. I didn't. I couldn't. My hands trembled just slightly as I reached for the same cup of tea, now cold. I sipped it anyway. "Mom," he said gently. "You okay?" I nodded. But the images were already storming back, the ones I buried deep for 15 years. There was a night, maybe my worst, when I slept in the bathroom of a downtown bus station, my newborn in my lap, crying silently as I tried to keep my own sobs from waking him. I had stolen toilet paper from a gas station to use as makeshift diapers. I had no idea how to apply for shelter housing, no phone signal, and a coat too thin for November air. My body was still healing, my stitches raw, my breasts leaking milk that soaked through my shirt while men walked past the stall and whistled. And I remember thinking, maybe they're right. Maybe I did ruin everything. But Noah cried. And I realized something then. I hadn't ruined anything. I had survived. "Do you want to tell me what just happened?" Noah asked, pulling me back to the present. I exhaled. "That was the family that threw me away like garbage." He didn't speak, just nodded, then quietly asked, "Do you want them here?" "No," I said. Then I paused. "But I want them to need me here, just like I needed them." That night, while Noah went to bed, I sat on the couch and stared at the ceiling, the shadows from the hallway lamp dancing across the plaster. My mind wasn't here. It was 15 years ago again. To the day I met Raymond. He was tall, charming, reckless, the kind of guy who could say the stupidest thing and make it sound like poetry. We weren't even together that long, just 4 months. But when I told him I was pregnant, he looked at me like I'd murdered his future. "I'm not doing this," he said flatly. "I can't." And then he ghosted. I didn't cry for him. I cried for me, because I had to do everything alone. And I did. The next morning, there was another knock. I opened the door. They were still there. They hadn't left. Noah came downstairs with his gym bag slung over one shoulder, a protein bar in hand. He slowed when he saw them again. Dad stepped forward. "Rebecca, we're sorry. We truly are." I raised an eyebrow. "Really? You're sorry now? Or just sorry you're homeless?" Silence. He sighed, rubbing his forehead. "You were right. We let pride destroy everything. You made it out. You built this." He motioned toward the house behind me. "We just didn't expect you to be the one we'd need someday." "You expected me to disappear," I said, voice low. "You expected me to fail and come back begging. But I didn't." "And we were wrong," he said. That's when I saw it, a flicker of something in his eyes. Not guilt, not grief, fear. Noah walked up behind me and slid the car keys into my palm. "You don't have to deal with this if you don't want to, Mom. I'll send them away." But I shook my head. "No," I said. "Let them stay." He looked at me. "Really?" I smiled coldly. "Yes, let them in." I turned to my father. "You wanted shelter? You got it. But under my rules. And don't expect kindness. I've already given all of that. And you threw it away." And with that, I stepped aside again. What happens next will be darker. The quiet unraveling of their pride, their discomfort in my success, the weight of every memory I had to survive on my own. But I wasn't angry. I was calm. Because revenge isn't loud. It's letting them feel what silence really sounds like. They sat at my kitchen table like strangers. My father, with his hunched shoulders and clenched jaw, scanned the room as if looking for something familiar, but found nothing that belonged to him. My mother stirred her tea without drinking it. Aunt Lacey avoided my eyes altogether, and Cousin Matt just kept scrolling through his cracked phone, like he didn't realize the Wi-Fi password wouldn't be handed to him. I didn't offer them food. I didn't offer stories. Just silence. And that silence? It made them uncomfortable. Noah passed through the kitchen, tall and composed. "Morning," he said politely. No bitterness, no sarcasm, just smooth confidence. Then he kissed my cheek and left for work. The silence got heavier. Finally, my father cleared his throat. "He's doing well, your son." "He built Ridgetech from nothing," I said flatly. "While you told me he was a mistake." Dad didn't respond. He glanced down at his hands, suddenly very interested in his own fingernails. Aunt Lacey tried a smile. "You really raised a good boy, Becca." I didn't smile back. "Not Becca. It's Rebecca now. And I raised him while sleeping in shelters and cleaning hotel toilets. No help. No money. Just grit." Matt laughed awkwardly. "Well, it turned out okay, didn't it?" I turned to him slowly. "Did it?" His face fell. Because the truth was, they thought time erased what they'd done. That success healed the scars they helped create. But all it did was give me the strength to make them sit in what they left behind. That evening, my mother finally pulled me aside. "We didn't know how to support you back then," she said in a quiet voice. "We were scared. Ashamed." "You were silent," I replied. "That's not fear. That's choice." Her lip trembled. "People talked, Rebecca. Your father had a reputation to protect." I held up a hand. "Don't. Not now. Not after 15 years." She swallowed hard. "We lost everything." "No," I said. "You gave it away. Piece by piece. Just like you gave me away." And then I walked away. Because this time, I wasn't the one begging for space. They were. 3 nights in, and the house felt like it was holding its breath. They tiptoed around the kitchen like guests in a museum, careful not to touch anything that didn't belong to them. And that was everything. Because nothing here belonged to them. Not the granite countertops, not the hardwood floors, not the calm. They hadn't earned any of it. That evening, Noah came home early. He dropped his keys on the table, loosened his tie, and nodded politely to everyone, then sat beside me like he always did. "Dinner smells good," he said, eyeing the stove. "I made extra," I said casually, not even glancing at the others. He got up, filled 2 plates, one for me, one for himself, and came back. The others watched quietly from the corners of the room, not even pretending they weren't hungry. But I didn't invite them to the table. They could have asked. They didn't. Just like I once sat outside their dining room door, holding my newborn and listening to their laughter echo from inside, so I let them stay hungry, because sometimes hunger teaches what pride never could. After dinner, Noah leaned forward. "So," he said, voice calm but cutting, "I heard you used to say my mom ruined your family's reputation." The room went dead still. My father stiffened. "That's not—" "You said it to her face," Noah said. "She told me. And I believe her. Because I saw how hard she worked to survive after you threw her out." My mom's lips parted, but nothing came out. "You know what people said about me growing up?" Noah continued. "That I'd end up on drugs, in jail, just like the fatherless kids they see on the news. But my mom made sure I never touched that path. She gave me everything she never had." He looked directly at my father. "And now, you're under her roof, because she didn't fail." You did. My father's face flushed red. He stood but couldn't find the words. For once, he had no comeback. Noah leaned back. You should thank her. Every night. For not letting you sleep on the street. I said nothing. I didn't have to. Noah said it all. Later that night, my father knocked on my bedroom door. He stood in the hallway, small in a way I'd never seen before. I'm sorry, he said, for everything. I looked him straight in the eye. You're just sorry I didn't become the failure you expected. Then I closed the door. 3 days later, it happened. They were still living here. Awkward, quiet, trying not to be in the way. Like ghosts haunting a house they used to own in their imagination. But nothing they did erased the damage, and nothing they said reached me. Not anymore. I had spent too many nights begging for love they were never willing to give. Now I didn't need it. I didn't need them. But what I needed was closure. And I didn't know I'd get it in the form of the last man I ever wanted to see again. That morning, a black SUV pulled into the driveway. I watched from the kitchen window, my mug of coffee halfway to my lips. Noah stepped out of the car, but it was the man who stepped out behind him that made my stomach twist. Raymond, the father of my son, still tall, still polished. But the charm had worn off his face. Age and regret had settled in the creases. He looked tired, hollow. I opened the door slowly. Noah spoke first. He reached out last week, said he wanted to meet me. I blinked. And you agreed? He nodded. I thought you should be the one to decide what happens next. Raymond cleared his throat. Rebecca? I held up a hand. You don't get to start with my name like you have any right to it. His mouth shut instantly. Inside, my father had come into the hallway, eyes wide, my mother behind him. Cousin Matt peeking from the guest room like a coward. I turned toward them. Do you know who this is? I asked flatly. They said nothing. This is the man you hated so much. You threw your daughter out into the cold. The man you blamed everything on while doing nothing. To help me. Still silence. I turned back to Raymond. You left me when I needed you most. I raised him alone. Not once did you write, or check in, or send $1. He swallowed hard. I was a coward. I was young. You didn't care, I cut in. But guess what? I didn't need you. He didn't need you. And now he's standing beside me, not you. Raymond looked down at Noah, who stood taller than him now. Stronger. Noah simply said, I didn't come here for a father. I came here to see what weakness looks like. Raymond flinched. And my father? His face crumbled. Because the final mirror had shattered. That evening, I sat on the back porch alone, watching the sun set over the hills. Noah joined me. You okay? He asked softly. I nodded. For the first time in years, I actually am. We sat in silence for a while before he asked, Are you going to let them stay? I took a breath. They can stay. Just long enough to feel what it's like to be tolerated, to be ignored, to not matter. Then I looked him in the eye. But the day they stop learning, they leave. That night, as my father cleared his plate in silence, as my mother avoided my eyes, as Cousin Matt kept his voice low, they knew. They weren't part of this house. They were shadows in it. And me? I wasn't the girl begging to be accepted anymore. I was the woman they now had to respect, whether they liked it or not. Because I didn't just survive what they put me through. I rose above it. And now, I made them witness every second of what they lost.
You've no accomplishments, my dad bellowed, slamming his glass onto the table so hard the champagne sloshed over. You've wasted your life. Look at your brother, look at him. And look at you. Forks paused. Glasses hovered in midair. Eyes locked on me, some with pity, others with pure amusement. And then cheers. My aunts, uncles, cousins clapping, toasting to my brother's engagement as if I didn't exist. I sat there frozen, my jaw tightening, my palms glued to my lap under the white tablecloth. My mother said nothing. She adjusted her necklace and smiled politely, not at me, but at the crowd. I wasn't even the afterthought. I was the inconvenience. My brother Evan stood tall in his tailored gray suit, arm wrapped proudly around his fiancée Danielle, Mississippi State real estate queen, apparently. Blonde, slender, perfectly rehearsed. The kind of woman my dad always wanted me to be. But I wasn't. And they never let me forget it. Let's be honest here, Dad continued. Madeline's 31, still renting a one-bedroom apartment, and what does she do again? Something with books. Editor, Dad, I murmured, my voice barely audible. He laughed. Editor. Oh right. The one who edits other people's real work. The guests roared in forced laughter, one of my cousins actually snorting into her drink. I felt it, a punch to the gut that wasn't physical, but it sure left me winded. Then came the line that did it. You'll never amount to anything, Dad spat. You've had your chances. Evan's the one we're proud of.
He's built something.
He's accomplished something. I felt the blood drain from my face, but I didn't move. Not yet. Then, through the awkward silence that followed, a sound no one expected, the slow screech of an old wooden chair against tile. Everyone turned. My grandfather, 79, sharp as ever, wearing his signature navy jacket with the silver pins, stood up. Not in anger, not in applause, just slow, deliberate, and calm. Then it's time, he said, his voice clear and heavy. I show you all what she's been hiding. The room froze. Even the string quartet in the corner stopped mid-song. My dad blinked. Dad, what are you? Sit down, my grandfather said to him. All of you.
Sit down.
Something in his tone made even the smug ones shut up. My brother's fiancé clutched his arm tighter, and Evan, for once, didn't look so confident. Grandpa reached inside his coat pocket and pulled out a folded stack of papers, slightly worn, clipped together. Let me tell you what your unaccomplished daughter has really been doing. He looked at me and nodded. My chest tightened. My secrets. The ones I never planned to share. He turned back to the table. For the past 6 years, he began, Madeline's been running an anonymous grant fund. It's helped over 240 young women in underprivileged areas get into college. She's personally reviewed every application. She's helped them navigate loans, tuition waivers, even paid their housing with her own salary.
Gasps.
Then silence. Even the clinking of cutlery stopped. She's also ghost-edited 7 nonfiction books, 5 of which became bestsellers, he added. Books her company took credit for. Do you know how much they paid her? Barely enough to cover rent. But she did it anyway. I felt my stomach twist. I hadn't wanted anyone to know. Especially not them. Grandpa raised the final sheet. And this is the incorporation certificate for her own publishing house.
Signed. Filed.
Ready to go live next month. She built it in secret. No outside funding. Every dollar she made from editing, she saved. Quietly. Relentlessly. He looked at my father. So tell me again, who in this room has no accomplishments? No one spoke. My dad looked like he'd swallowed a brick. I was still seated. Trembling.
Exposed.
Then my grandfather turned to me and said gently, Stand up, Maddie. I stood. You should be proud of yourself, he said, and then turned to the crowd. All of you should be ashamed. The room was heavy. No one touched their drinks. My dad's face had gone pale, like the words had cracked something open in him, and he didn't know how to seal it back shut. My fingers were still trembling, but I stood there. Every breath in my lungs felt louder than the silence in that hall. Madeline, my grandfather said softly, do you want to say anything? I opened my mouth.
Closed it.
Then lifted my chin. Not really, I said, voice dry. I think the truth said enough. Danielle shifted in her heels, her arms still wrapped around Evan like a polished ornament. Well, she started, with a laugh that didn't land, That's impressive. Really. But let's not make the engagement party about the daughter your future father-in-law just humiliated? Grandpa snapped. The woman this family's ignored, insulted, and mocked for years? Danielle's lips flattened. It's not your fault, I said to her. You don't know what it's like. I don't, she replied, eyebrows lifting. My dad was a rancher in Texas. I scrubbed trucks to afford my degree. I raised a brow. And yet you didn't stop Evan when he joked about me being the librarian in a dead-end dress. You laughed. Her mouth opened and closed again. Grandpa clapped once. All right. Enough ceremony. We've lifted the rug. Seen what's beneath. Dad finally said, clearing his throat. I didn't know she was doing all that. You didn't ask, I said flatly.
He stood now, too.
We're not perfect, Maddie. But if you'd told us. I did. I snapped. Do you remember 4 years ago, when I said I was thinking about starting my own imprint? You laughed. You said, don't waste your money on a hobby. Mom said I'd need a man to fund it. I never, Mom began, face flushing. You did, I said quietly. It was during Christmas. I remember, because I spent the rest of the night cleaning the dishes while you all watched reruns in the den. The room stayed frozen. My brother finally spoke. Look, maybe you've got something going now, okay? But this doesn't mean I did anything wrong by succeeding. I worked for what I have. No one said you didn't, Evan, I replied. But your success was never held up as a weapon to beat you with. Mine was always invisible. Until now.
He scoffed.
This feels like a staged moment. Staged. Grandpa boomed. Do you think I'm a prop in your little country club drama? Evan winced. No, that's not. I watched this girl grow up under your criticism, Grandpa said, glaring at my father. Every day, you chipped away at her confidence. You called her quiet.
Weak.
Said she was soft. He turned to me again, his eyes fierce. But you've been stronger than any of them. I finally breathed.
Deep. Shaky.
Then I stepped around the table and walked out. I didn't run. I didn't break down. I just left. Let them sit with it. Let them taste their own silence. I walked to the balcony. The garden outside was lit with soft yellow fairy lights. Below, guests mingled and laughed, unaware of the tension on the top floor. Maddie. I turned.
Grandpa.
You all right? He asked. I will be. He nodded. They'll never see the same again. I don't want them to, I said. I'm done letting them tell me who I am. He handed me something. A velvet pouch. What is this? Open it. Inside. A single gold key. What? It's the spare to the loft I've kept in Manhattan, he said. Fully paid. I never sold it. I always thought I'd give it to someone who deserved a clean slate. Grandpa, I can't. You already earned it. This isn't a gift. This is overdue justice. I stared at him. My voice broke. Why didn't you tell me you were watching all this time?
I was waiting, he said.
Waiting for the day you'd stand tall even when they tried to bury you. And tonight you did. Back inside, the party stumbled on. Toasts resumed. But something had shifted. I walked back in long enough to take one last look. Dad wouldn't meet my eyes. Mom smiled weakly. Evan sipped his drink, his jaw tight. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. Because for the first time in my life, I was the one walking out with the last word. And it wasn't even spoken. 3 weeks later, a thick white envelope landed at my apartment door. No return address. Hand-delivered. Inside, a formal invitation. Harborview Awards Gala. Honoring contributions to independent publishing and women's advancement. And there it was, my name. Madeline Grace Whitmore. I stared at the lettering until it blurred. Then I picked up my phone. 10 missed calls.
Dad. Mom.
Evan. Even Danielle. After Grandpa's speech, I'd gone silent. Blocked them all for a while. Let them stew. Let the guilt and curiosity rot in their stomachs like it had once done to me. But now they wanted back in. The first public whisper of who I really was, and suddenly they cared. Not out of love. Out of panic. That weekend I got a call I didn't expect. Not from family. from a reporter. She was young, voice shaky but polite. Miss Whitmore, I wanted to ask if you'd be open to talking about the Atlas Project? I froze. That was the name I'd kept private for 6 years. My nonprofit fund for helping underserved women get into education and publishing. No one had ever linked it to me. How did you? I began. There's chatter online, she said. An anonymous donor finally leaked some of the documentation. Said it was time your name was known. I knew who did it.
Grandpa.
He'd always said, let your work speak louder than your words, but when it's time to speak, don't whisper. By the time the gala night arrived, I was a nervous wreck in a tailored midnight blue dress. Minimal makeup. Hair pulled back. I wasn't trying to impress. I was just trying to show up. For once, for myself. The auditorium shimmered with light. People clinked glasses, hugged old colleagues, traded cards. And then I saw them. My family. All of them. Front row. Dad in a crisp blazer. Mom in pearls. Evan in a tux. Danielle, of course, in gold. My spine stiffened. I wasn't sure if I wanted to scream or laugh. As I stepped toward the stage when my name was called, I caught it. Dad's face. That strange half-proud, half-ashamed look he gave when something didn't go the way he planned. I stood behind the podium. The audience applauded. The MC smiled. A woman who has changed the trajectory of hundreds of lives without seeking a single spotlight. Tonight, we honor the founder of the Atlas Project. Applause. Camera flashes. And in that light, I saw clearly. They didn't clap for me when I was just their daughter. Their sister. The one in hand-me-downs who carried books instead of handbags. But now that others clapped, they wanted in. I leaned into the mic. Thank you for this. I never imagined standing here, mainly because I was taught never to take up too much space, to let others lead, to silence myself even when I had something worth saying. A murmur went through the room. I continued. I created the Atlas Project in silence. I didn't announce it to my family. I didn't wait for their approval, because I knew I wouldn't get it. I knew the only applause I'd hear was the sound of my own keyboard at 2 a.m., filling out grant reports. Somewhere in the front row, I saw Mom shift uncomfortably. But I learned something, I said. Silence doesn't protect you from cruelty. It just makes it easier for people to ignore the damage they're causing. Now, Evan looked down at his shoes. So I'm done being silent. A beat. I stepped back. The standing ovation hit like thunder. After the gala, I didn't wait for them to corner me. But they followed. In the hallway just outside the dressing area. Madeline, Dad called, his tone now lower. Can we talk? I turned.
Slowly.
I guess now you're proud? I asked, arms crossed. He swallowed. I made mistakes. I see that now. Do you? I said flatly. Or, do you just see headlines? He looked stunned. Evan stepped in. Mads, look, I get it. Things got heated. But we're still family. I gave a bitter smile. Family? Funny word. Especially when none of you even knew where I lived for the last 5 years. Danielle tried to smooth things. I think what they're trying to say is they're sorry. I didn't hear the word. I said. Say it. We're sorry, Mom said first. Her voice cracked. We failed you. I needed that before, I replied. When I cried alone in my room, hearing you laugh over Evan's business plans. When I showed you my first magazine feature and you called it a hobby. When I begged to be seen and you all looked away. Dad stepped forward. We want to fix this. No, I said quietly. You want to rewrite it. That landed hard. You don't get to erase what happened and pretend you always believed in me. Tears welled in Mom's eyes. But I didn't move. I didn't soften. You all said I'd never amount to anything, I whispered. Now I'm everything you told me I couldn't be. And I walked away. No second glance. No closure speech. Because for the first time in my life, I didn't need their permission to move on. 2 weeks passed. The speech had gone viral. Someone from the audience had uploaded it to social media. The clip of me saying, "Silence doesn't protect you from cruelty," was now being used on talk shows, motivational pages, and stitched into reels with piano music. My inbox overflowed. Strangers wrote to thank me. Young women said they finally felt seen. A teacher from Oregon sent a message saying she used my words in her classroom discussion about resilience. But the messages from my family? I ignored them all. Until Grandpa called. "Maddie," he said, voice low, "you should come home. Just for an hour." I knew what that meant. He wouldn't ask unless it mattered. The house felt the same. White porch. Same rusted mailbox. Same old rug in the hallway, with that frayed corner no one ever fixed. But this time, when I stepped inside, the energy had changed. They were waiting.
Dad. Mom.
Evan.
Danielle.
And someone I hadn't seen in years. Uncle Ray. The family black sheep. At least that's what I was always told. But now he looked straight at me and nodded. Grandpa stood beside him. "There's something they need to hear," Grandpa said. "Not from me. From him." Ray cleared his throat. "You were 7 when I tried to send you a letter," he said softly. "Do you remember?" I blinked.
No.
"That's because they never gave it to you." He held up an envelope. Old. Faded, with a sticker of a rainbow on the back. "I sent gifts too. Every birthday. I got them returned. Your mom said it was better if I stayed gone. Said I'd confuse you." I turned to Mom. "Is that true?"
She didn't speak.
Dad answered for her. "We thought we were protecting you. Ray made mistakes." Ray's voice was calm.
Yeah.
"I did. But you don't erase someone from a child's life for that." I felt dizzy. "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because your strength reminded me of who I used to be. And because I'm proud of you." He walked over, handed me a small square box. Inside was a locket. "I bought this for you. On your 10th birthday." I held it, heart racing. It wasn't expensive, but it felt heavier than gold. Later, as I sat outside on the porch swing, Grandpa joined me. "They kept you in the dark for a long time," he said. "But darkness never lasts, Maddie. You lit your own damn fire." I nodded slowly. "I'm just tired of forgiving people who only care after I've proven them wrong." "You don't have to forgive," he said. "But don't let them live rent-free in your head." I smiled faintly. "I don't think I ever told you this, but I wouldn't have made it without you." He squeezed my shoulder. "You didn't need saving. You just needed someone to remind you of your worth." Inside, I finally looked at my parents. "You apologized," I said. "But that doesn't erase the years." Mom looked down. Dad stayed quiet. "I'm not angry anymore," I added. "But I'm also not interested in pretending things are fine." "We don't expect that," Mom whispered. "Good," I said. "Because I have a life now. And it's bigger than this house. Bigger than your opinions. Bigger than your shame." Evan stood, holding something in his hand. A small hardcover book. I froze when I saw the title. It was my first published book. "I bought it," he said. "Read it in one night. And," he swallowed, "you're better than I'll ever be." I wish I'd said that sooner. I stared at him. For a moment he looked small. Not the golden child. Just a brother. A man realizing too late that his shadow had hurt someone else. "Thank you," I said quietly. "But it doesn't change who I had to become to survive you." Spring came quickly that year. Warmer days. Brighter skies. And somehow, even the city felt lighter, like it knew I was finally breathing differently. My publishing house, Whitmore Inc., launched quietly but spread fast. The stories I chose to release weren't commercial hits. They were real.
Raw.
Survivors, strugglers, voices that had been muted for years. And finally, someone was listening. One morning, I got a call from Harper Lane High School. A teacher had read an interview I'd done online. She asked if I could speak to the senior girls before graduation. I hesitated. Crowds still made me nervous. But I went. The gym smelled like old wood and teenage perfume. 45 girls sat on metal chairs, cross-legged or fidgeting. Their eyes were sharp. Tired. Curious. I didn't bring slides. I didn't prepare a speech. I just told them the truth. I was told I'd never amount to anything. I began, in a room full of people who laughed while I was humiliated. I didn't fight back that night. I didn't scream. I just remembered. And I built my life in silence, piece by piece. One girl in the back wiped a tear. So, if you've been made to feel invisible, I continued, just know, the best revenge is becoming someone they have to see. The room went still. Then applause. Not loud, but real. Afterward, a girl with frizzy curls and chipped nail polish came up to me. My dad says I'm too sensitive to survive the real world, she whispered. But when you talked, it made me want to try anyway. I knelt down, took her hand gently.
Good, I said.
That means you're already stronger than he'll ever be. Weeks later, I got an email. Subject: one last thing. From my father. I stared at it for a long time before opening. Maddie, I know you don't owe me anything. I know I failed you in more ways than one. But I wanted to say I'm proud of you. Even if I didn't say it when you needed it, I see it now.
I see you.
I don't expect a response. I just wanted you to know.
Dad.
I didn't reply. Not because I hated him, but because I had nothing left to prove. That summer, I stood in the small garden of my Manhattan loft. Grandpa was there, watering a row of wildflowers he insisted on growing himself. You know, he said, not looking up, your father asked me if I thought you'd ever come home again. I smiled. And what did you tell him? I said no. Grandpa chuckled. Because you finally built your home. And it's wherever the hell you say it is now. I laughed. He won't like that answer. He doesn't have to. A breeze passed between us. Peaceful. Quiet. But I do hope, Grandpa added, that one day you forgive them. Not for their sake. For yours. I'm working on it, I said. Then I handed him a copy of the first book I wrote under my own name. He read the title, The Girl They Almost Erased. His eyes welled up. You did it, he whispered. No, I said. I am doing it. And I meant it. Final scene, 1 year later. The engagement party was long forgotten. But one headline lingered. Woman who was told she'd never amount to anything now owns the company that rejected her first manuscript. My phone buzzed. A message from Evan. Saw the article. I know you don't want to talk. But I just wanted to say, I get it now. I really do.
I didn't respond.
Instead, I closed the laptop.
Took my coffee.
Sat on my balcony, overlooking the city I'd once felt too small in. And I whispered to no one but myself. I'd choose me this time. Because the girl they once dismissed, she never left. She just got tired of asking for a seat at the table. So she built her own. And she wasn't taking names. She was rewriting them.